But many people view sexual harassment as something that only happens to women. But sexual harassment also happens to men. And from a Caribbean perspective, some of the stories that I hear as it relates to sexual harassment in the workplace of men completely baffle me. Like, I've never experienced it in terms of a male employee coming and complaining. I've always experienced it from the female perspective. But in terms of from an HR perspective, as an HR professional being sexually harassed, I cannot say that I've ever, until I read your story, heard about that before. So I'm going to ask you to do two things for me. Can you please tell the audience what sexual harassment is, and then please share your story.
I think this is such a very important conversation, especially for us in the Caribbean because of our culture.
Yes.
And the way that we flow culturally. We're very social people, and we're very, as we would say, touchy-feely people. Mm-hmm. And in a good way in many cases, because we love to hug and we love to, we laugh and we will slap you on the shoulder and all of these things that make our culture very exciting and very appealing, especially for hospitality and tourism. But I think where people cross the line is where they don't understand that for some people, unwanted touch, conversation, advances can be deemed as harassment, period, whether sexual or not. And so it's very important that we understand that key word, unwanted. And so if someone does not want to be touched, someone does not want to be flirted with, someone does not want to see racy photos or video in your cell phone, someone does not want to have their way blocked or hindered trying to enter or exit a room, all of those things are harassment. And I think one of the things that is shocking for many as well is that you don't have to be personally harassed, but if you view someone else having to deal with that type of behavior and you find it offensive, you can report that as harassment, even though it's not happening to you. Yeah. And so when I've done trainings with staff about that, they're all up in arms, like, well, it's not happening to them. How could they be offended? The fact that you're in my presence and we are at work means that I can be offended by your behavior, even if it's directed towards someone else.
That reminds me of our legislation locally as it relates to domestic violence, because many people feel that the domestic violence means that it's happening to you. But the fact that you are in the presence of someone who has experienced domestic violence makes you a victim of domestic violence. And this is true when it transposes to sexual harassment.
Yeah. And so I'm so glad you opened up by saying that it happens to both genders, because I was going to open up by saying that too. That's one of the myths that we must get rid of, that this is something that only happens to women. And I think that in many cases, men don't report it simply because of the stigma that's attached to it and the way we treat them, that we may laugh at it and we say, well, oh, you know what, you should enjoy it. And that's usually the outward reaction that I would get in a session from men. Like, oh, well, if a lady comes at me like that, I love that. Why are you complaining? Yeah. But again, we go back to that word, unwanted. If I don't want that approach, I don't want that level of conversation, that touch, anything, then it is sexual harassment.
Yeah. Thank you so much.